Welcome to Unlocking My Potential, a podcast all about women in STEM sharing their stories, struggles, and the lessons that shape their paths. I'm Natalie, and I'm really glad to have you here today. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to Unlocking My Potential. I'm here today with Payton Barnwell. She will be sharing her amazing background and story with some experience in mechanical engineer, mission control engineer, program management, some different fellowships, grants, scholarships, and so much more. So very, very excited to have you join her today.
Thanks. I'm so excited. Obviously, I am one of my favorite topics to talk about, but talking about like the space industry and how other women can do similar things or their own flavor is like one of the best things that I could probably talk for 4 hours for. So I'll keep it short.
No, that's amazing. Take your time, share as many details as you want. Very excited to get your full background and story up for us here today. So let's get started with the beginning. How did you get that little spark initially in regards to mechanical engineering, going into a STEM education? How did the whole process start?
Yeah, so I feel like your story might be a little similar given that we both went to Florida Poly. But leading up to Florida Poly, I feel like I really lucked out in picking engineering. I'm the first one to go to like college in my family. I didn't even know how the application process worked. I was really winging the SAT and ACT and just like hoping for the best. I was like, I'm good enough at math. We'll see how it goes. And when I found out about Florida Poly, they came to a movie theater in my town and was like, here's this school. It's opening up. It's brand new. We'll pay for your tuition. And I was like, that sounds really cool. You'll pay for my entire college. So I was like already kind of thinking about going for maybe like business. I didn't know what I was going to do with business, but I was like, I like the idea of talking to people, closing deals, doing all that cool stuff. But as soon as I got accepted to Florida Poly and I was looking at all the majors, I was like, I really like the idea of doing something in the space industry. SpaceX was like launching, not as much as they do now, but it was a really big deal when that was happening when I was in high school. And I was like, I'm good enough at physics. Let's go with that and hope for the best. So that's kind of how I got into it. It was like kind of trying to figure out like, okay, now that I've been accepted, like what can I do with this? I liked the space industry. I thought that might be too far of a reach, just given that it's like the meme of the thing is literally rocket science. And I'm like, okay, like who do I think I am? And for some reason, the thing that seemed easier was like working on roller coasters. I wouldn't call myself like a full Disney adult TM, but I love a theme park. So I was like, that could be super cool. Like maybe I'll go for that. So for a while, I explored that idea. And then when I got actually like on campus, started taking classes, I was like, okay, rockets are sick. We're going to figure out how to get this done. So dropped Disney for rockets. And I was like, we'll keep figuring it out. And it's kind of just like worked out from them. Obviously, I've done like tons of like hard work, networks, done all that we'll chat about. But I really feel lucky in the sense that I like found something that I really loved that was really flashy and cool and drew me to it. And then I just kept going. But I didn't dream of being an engineer when I was like a small child. So that part worked out.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of us kind of just jump into it at some point where it's kind of like a big jump of not knowing what engineering is. At least that's how it was for me.
Oh, yeah.
And so just jumping on, oh, hey, I kind of like computers and I'm pretty good at this, and going to a STEM education after that. I think a lot of us, like you mentioned, kind of goes through that experience a little bit of just jumping into engineering very randomly. But that is so awesome. That's so awesome. That's how you started, and kind of going into the little bit of like the spaceship, the space mindset. Can you share a little bit about some of the programs you participated with that throughout college, especially some of the internships? Like I mentioned in the beginning, some fellowships, grants, scholarships, and other things that you got through that?
Yeah. So on campus, like I said, the closest thing we had to like aerospace engineering, which I thought was like the only way to actually work on that, was mechanical. So I was like, okay, like Google's telling me it's kind of close enough. Like, let's see how this goes. So I started a club at campus that was kind of like just around the idea of liking space. We didn't really have any like projects. I think they gave us a budget to buy a telescope at one point and we went camping. There was really like no real organization of what we're doing with this love of space. But through that, I got connected to somebody at the NASA Florida Space Grant Consortium. And every state basically has their own little team that works with NASA and different like commercial partners to provide opportunities for college students. So I was in like biology one or whatever we had to take, like something pretty basic. And since Florida Poly was really focused on like project based learning, we had the task of creating a research project. So I based mine off space, based it off. It was like themed. Like I said, it was biology one, but kind of around like radiation resistance and mimicking tardigrades, those little like water bears that are super cute if you've ever looked them up. But they can survive in space. So I was like, maybe there's a way to take that technology that they naturally have and apply it to like electronics or way down the road people. And I feel like I had a way bigger head than I do now because I was like, I can get money for this. This is such a genius idea. Me at like 19, no one's ever thought of this. So I contacted the Florida Space Grant Consortium, found a couple of professors on campus that were willing to like support me through this. And we wrote like a research proposal and they gave me, I think like $12,000, which at the time I was like, oh my God, like somebody funded me. Like I can start crazy things with that. And I'm like, okay, that's like not even my car, which is like quite a few years old too. So kind of just like people were around me that were supporting me enough to like kind of fuel that like excitement. So I got to do that research project. I got like my nerves out of the way a little bit and presenting like my own findings and like creating slide decks that communicated different things. And from that, I figured since that was already pretty selective, I could apply to an internship at NASA. And I was like, worst they can say is no. There's other places, you know, we'll figure something out, kind of that same mindset. So I remember like I applied, I think you could do like 10 maximum at a time. But the first step of the application was like, what school do you go to? And there was a drop down on there, and our school was not on it. So I was like, okay, this is kind of a blocker. What do we do here? So I decided that I went to a different school down the road that kind of was affiliated with Florida Poly at the time. I cleared it up with NASA after, but my first step in the door was like, we'll count it. Like, we go to school in Florida. So I applied. I remember I had the interview and I was really worried that my technical skills wouldn't be like up to par with what I thought NASA was. But also they were accepting like freshmen and sophomores in college. So looking back, I'm like, obviously they didn't care if I could like do anything crazy. They actually asked me a lot about like my volunteer and outreach experience. And that was most of the interview. And I remember because I was like,
Oh, wow.
wait, I would have prepared like way more, like if I would have known it was that. But I had been doing that like on weekends. I volunteered in high school too with like Girl Scouts or little things like that. Months later, I remember they called me and they're like, do you want this opportunity? It's working with the ground version of the lettuce that grows on the ISS. And I was like, doesn't seem connected to engineering, but I'll take it. So I'd say my career's kind of followed that same path too of like whatever opportunities here, whether it seems like it fits the exact story that I think I want at the time, just take it and see what happens. But yeah, NASA was like the first like real taste of like, oh my God, I can go outside and there's a rocket launching and like, oh my God, an astronaut's walked here. Like it's crazy. So that was super fun.
Amazing. That's amazing how you started with such a huge company. And it's literally what you mentioned. Based on the interview, I think I would have prepared myself in such a technical way. I'll say
Right.
whatever technical knowledge we had at that point, right? Being
Yeah.
sophomores and freshmen in college. We don't have a lot of technical knowledge at that point. But that is amazing how they kind of knew in the back of their mind of freshmen and sophomores don't have a lot of technical knowledge, but we're still giving these people an opportunity for an internship and going
Totally.
through your volunteer experience and just anything that you have at that point on your resume to offer that. So that's amazing. How was that internship? What did you do about growing lettuce and all of that in the space?
Yeah. So, like, honestly, if I thought about it enough, I could probably cry because it was like the most magical summer of just like truly the meme of the thing of like you're working there. There's stuff from the 60s. Like some of their facilities are run down. Women's restrooms weren't here because in the 60s women didn't work here. But it was like so like of the era that it was like I feel like I went back in time, mostly because they were outdated. But my work like day to day was trying to find the best light recipe for different plants. So on the ISS at the time, they were growing like red lettuce. And my job was to like sit there and like monitor the spectrum like every day and see what was going on and write it down. Kind of like the smallest version of a lab assistant. But my boss at the time, like thinking back, I have no idea how old he was, but he was just like so thoughtful, like wise well beyond his years. Like he had a PhD. So he like also was very thoughtful about the work he was doing. It was very related. But like somebody who would sit there and answer like every possible question I ever had about like the work, about like working in college and trying to like get a job after that and balancing life. He was like such a perfect mentor for that like moment in time. And I got to spend a lot of time with him in like plant containment units that were like a big walk-in refrigerator, and like in the lab in the dusty old building that probably had some sort of thing that like they wouldn't let you in now. But just like so many like foundational experiences of just like being in a weird situation and someone caring about you. But I do remember I got to like talk to the head of that NASA center at the time, Bob Cabana. He was like a shuttle astronaut. And I remember I was like, I have to talk to an astronaut while I'm here. Like,
Mhm.
I'm a faker if I didn't do that. So I kept asking people, like, do you know any? Do any work here? Like, how do I find them? Like, creeping around the hallway, like where they would go. I was like, I'm determined. And they were like, why don't you just email his assistant? Like, he has somebody here to coordinate meetings. Just ask. And I was like, no, that's scary. So they like talked me into it. And I remember having like everyone in the office like proofread my email, like, okay, do you think this is good? And he was just like, yeah, let's have a meeting.
Oh,
So all the
wow.
rest of the interns in my like same office, we all got to sit there and chat with him and like ask him how crazy it was to be an astronaut, and like how it was to run the center. So it was pretty neat, and also another taste of like, well, just try. Like everybody says
Mhm.
that, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? But I really didn't believe it until like I started doing it. And I was like, okay, like this is working. It's cool.
That is amazing. Wow. I think that's a dream that a lot of people have of you actually met someone that went into space.
I
That is
know.
insanity.
And it like it
But
never goes away. Like with all of like my past jobs too, or like conferences that I go to now, it's like, oh, they're so and so, they're an astronaut, or like someone that was a mentor before and now they're an astronaut from commercial space. And it's like every time I'm like, like you've been to space, that's crazy. Like we'll be in the bathroom at a conference and it's another like woman in the industry, but she happened to go and I'm just like, oh my God, like there she is. Like, what?
that is
So
amazing. And how did that internship open doors for some other internship experiences and opportunities, and even moving from college to a full-time job? What did you learn at that point with the internship that made you just switch your mind from maybe a major change in so or graduating with a mechanical engineer, defining, okay, this is the path that I'm going to take? Did that internship made some of those decisions by the end of the day?
yeah, so I'd say like it didn't help at that point in time with my confidence with classes. Like classes were still
Mhm.
really hard. There would be like once probably a month where I'd go like, why do I think I can do this? Like what's happening? I'm sitting here crying over Calc 2 or differential equations. Like I don't know
Mhm.
if this is for me, even though I had like the best summer of my life. Like I'm still unsure. And I remember like having certain professors I'd go to and basically like truly have a whole breakdown in their office going like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, that's fine. You'll figure it out.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so having that like tough love was really helpful too. Like somebody that's been there, gone through it, and they're like, really, like just if you love it, keep going. Um, and then I also like kind of lucked out timeline wise, that the Brooke Owens Fellowship was already kind of like established in the industry as something that really unlocked future opportunities for people. And it's a pretty selective program for women and gender minorities that they connect you with a mentor in the industry and an internship, and then like a whole bunch of friends that all love the same like nerdy space stuff as you. And I remember I met a girl who was in the first class who I was like, oh my God, she's one of the Brooke Owens fellows. Like, I have to get in there. And I was like, oh my God, you're going to be my best friend. Tell me how you did it. What do I do? You're a genius. Like, I don't know if this is even possible. So kind of like the same thing as the NASA internship. I was like, I will give it my best try. I'll do all the technical studying. I'll figure it all out. And we'll just see. So then I don't have that regret, because it's like you can only apply during undergrad. So kind of timing out. And I remember the interview was like, you have to submit a video, you have to submit something creative, you have to pick from all these companies what your favorite ones would be. And I was like, okay, it's creative. Like, that's better. They're not going to test me on like thermodynamics. So I remember I went through all of that and I was like, this would be like probably the coolest thing that I ever get to do. Let's submit it. And I remember like panicking. And I was in the one building of our college at the time. For people who don't know, the IST, this big weird shaped building off the interstate. And it was like a hackathon night or something, but I was on campus. Maybe we were studying. Maybe I was crying over classes. But it was like in this public area. And I got a call and I like stepped away. And it was one of the like executive directors at the time. And he was like, hey, Payton, I just want to let you know, like, you got in. And I feel like I can still like hear his voice saying that, because I was like, I think everything's going to be different now. You know, like I'm going to have like people who are with me on the same journey, like weird little community. And from there, like, I think it was just another opportunity to meet like real adults at the time who were like in the industry doing the thing I wanted to do, but also showed like so many different flavors of that. So like women that had a family and were running a company in the space industry who like truly had everything that I've ever wanted, like all right there and crushing it and like being honest about the struggles of the industry, or like guys that were really high up at companies who like really crushed the branding of some space company. And it's like, oh, I think that's so neat. I want to learn from you. So like all of these different little like nuggets of information that I can pull on that they were all so excited to help was just another way to go like, okay, now I have a network. Like I had a couple of people that was like, okay, like let's struggle together. Can you help me? Do you know anyone? But then it was like, okay, this is like clearly made to support me. So from there, I got to have an internship at an aerospace company here in Atlanta. They were working on the X-60A hypersonic sort of like payload system. And I got to see like what startups were like. And I was like, okay, for sure, the space industry is for me. And then after or I guess right before graduation, I was like, what am I going to do for a job? I had 2 internships. None of them were like, here you go. Here's your beautiful job offer after graduation. Even though I'm sure I did so great and knew so much as a small child in college. But I was like panicking and I was like, okay, I'll probably stay in Florida, work at somewhere on the Space Coast. I'm sure there's something, you know? And I'm applying, I'm like taking interviews, and like some I'd get offers and they just weren't like the fit for like the office that I thought I wanted. But then it was like literally graduation day and I did not have a job lined up. And I'm like, okay, what was all this hard work for? And then I think like 2 weeks later, I got a call from Virgin Galactic and I had like interviewed and applied there. And they were like, hey, we have an internship position. You want it? And I was like, okay, let me have a full breakdown about how I'm graduating and taking an internship. Like, that's not the traditional route like I thought it would go. But that was like another great opportunity that just didn't seem like it at the start. Like, by no means am I like, oh my God, like how crazy. I was still an intern. But I was like, I thought I was going to be some hot shot, you know, like so many people begging me to work there, like full time, big flashy salary. And it was like, that's not the case. But I took it and I was like, all right, we're going to make the best of it. And that was for flight sciences, like aerodynamics, like thermal analysis. And to make a long story short there, it was in Palmdale, California. That is the middle of nowhere desert, and I am not an outdoors girly. So that part was tough. But I once again just had access to like a group of people who all love the same nerdy stuff, who had no outside people because we're all struggling in the desert. So like every day I got to bother them and go, I want to do this. How do I do this? Like ask the CEO out for lunch again. Like tell me everything. How do I become you? Can I like shadow you for a day? What's going on? And I'm pretty convinced like it was my engineering skills, but I also annoyed everybody enough to where they loved me and offered me a job at the end. So I guess like to that point, graduation and then like the job offer, it was like I'd have something exciting and then go like, okay, but what if this is still wrong? And I'd say it was like pretty recent where I was like, okay, no, now I can just do whatever I want and it might take me longer, but it's fine. So
Did you, once you graduated college and you get offered the internship, did you at any point debate if you should take it or and wait for another position, maybe a full-time position to come? Because I didn't even know that companies could offer an internship for someone that graduated, to be fairly honest. I always thought internships had to be while you're in college. So that's a very different thing that I've never heard before.
totally. And I literally thought it was like, okay, they don't like me enough to like give me a full-time job, so they're gonna like trial it. But like now I know that's a little different. Like there's all different kinds of like similar fellowships where it's like they want somebody who knows a decent amount of stuff. So they'll offer you kind of that same sort of trial, but it's like if you like it, then you get to test it out too, which also is like a little bit unique. But no, like when I got the call, I was like, I'm excited. Also, it's in the middle of nowhere. So no one in my family's ever moved out of like Tampa, Florida. Lakeland was a big deal. They were like, how are we going to see you? And it's like, it's 30 minutes away, literally straight interstate. But I was like, okay, I have to like move the farthest away I've ever been, like do it all by myself. And I'd say that was like the bigger like battle in my head of like, okay, now it's a new job, something very technical. Also, I'm alone. So that was the main one. And it kind of like truly got down to like, I'm hoping maybe another job offer comes in. Like, I don't know how this is going to be. And then I was like, well, you know, let's send it. Like, I'll ship my car. We'll make the best of it. It is only going to be like 3 months at a maximum or whatever it was going to be. So like worst case, I just come home and start like applying to other jobs again. But at first I was really scared. And it truly was just like, I don't know anybody who was around my age who was like, I'm just going to uproot everything I've ever known and just go away. So yeah, that was tough at first.
Oh, no, I can only imagine. I kind of did something very similar, so I can relate. I did two internships at 3M in Minnesota. So both
In the
times
cold.
in the
Was it
very
cold while you were
freezing
there?
cold. During the summer is hot, which is good.
Okay.
But I did get my first full-time job in Minnesota as well, and I started in January, so it was
Mhm.
freezing. But I literally picked all of my things that I had put inside of my car. I did a little road trip through the whole East Coast with my brother, and then from the East Coast went to Minnesota. And yep, I didn't know many people. At that point, I knew a few people that um, were living in Minnesota from the internship. But yeah, it's the most scary thing that I think any of us should do, and it's a whole different experience. I think that there's the pros and cons of everything in life, right? But
Totally.
it's super scary to pick up your stuff, to go, to move, to whole different experience. But at the same time, I think in those very uncomfortable moments is when you learn a lot and you grow a lot. So I'm really glad that you jumped into it, that you actually picked up your stuff and went to a very small little town somewhere in California in the desert with nothing around. It makes you also understand what you like, what you don't. So to me, for example, Minnesota, after experiencing the cold weather, I knew that I'll never live in a cold place like that again.
Fair.
So sometimes you have to experience those differences, those big changes to understand the path that you actually want to take. But going a little bit more into that path of like your internship to your full-time position within the company, was it something that happened right away where you got to stay in California and right away start doing your full-time job? How did the process go, since it's very different that you started an internship after graduating?
Yeah, so it wasn't like stated up front that it was like if you do well and we like you, you're gonna have a full-time role. So there was a bit of ambiguity there, but I was like, all right, we'll see how it goes. Like the first couple weeks, like, am I gonna like this? Is this a place I want to like put my effort into making sure that they do love me like more than I would naturally? Um, so I was like going through the summer, and then at one point I got to sit in on mission control, and I was like just one of the interns, like in a back little chair, just like watching, seeing what everybody's doing. And I was like, okay, this is the stuff, like this is where like everything flashy is happening, and you really have to like prove your technical chops to like be in there. So it's like if I can make it past the like unofficial interview training process, then I know what I need to do. It's the cool part. You get to see stuff that like other people don't get to see yet. And I was like, okay, if I work here, I want to do that. Like that is the sick thing happening. So I remember I like sat in there the first time, and then I asked my team, I was like, can I go back? Like, can I go again? What if I got to sit at one of the chairs? Like, how do we make this happen? And that's truly where I think like I just annoyed everybody to where they're like, okay, she really wants to do this. Let's let her. So I remember like it was towards the end of the summer, and I was like coming up all the time where it was like time to ask my boss, like, hi, okay, so what about a full-time job with like real money? And like he talked to his team, and I remember we were all out for like a team happy hour. Like that was like the only thing to do in the desert. So we're like hanging out at this restaurant. And I was talking to like someone a bit higher up in the company, and he's like, well, like, would you want to stay? Like, we have an opening here. You seem to like it. You want to? And I was like, yes. And it was like all this panic the whole summer of like, oh my gosh, are they going to test me again? Do I have another interview? And they were like, you've been doing the work. Like, we want to keep you. So, like, come on full time if you want to. So that was another time where I was like, I kind of got stressed for no reason because I had already like built the relationships with people and like kept finding small ways to go, like, well, why don't I take on this work? Can I do this? Can I do that? So then it clearly kind of worked out there. But I think I had almost a month off from my internship to my start date. So I got to go home, like, hang out with my family a ton, see all my friends there, before I panicked again about finding like full-time housing there. But at that point, I'd already like made some friends, found some roommates. So it was like a little more comfortable. And then I ended up staying there for about a year and a half. And then it was COVID. So different situation.
Yeah. During the COVID time, were you able to work remotely? Did you move back to Florida? How did that go?
Yeah. So like all of our work was like in the office. Maybe there's young people who like have never experienced that at this point, I guess. But it was all in the office. I would have to drive like 45 minutes in from like town, like the closest town nearby. And that was like kind of a cool thing because it was like you'd see the desert, you'd show up to work. It was nice. Then during COVID, if you were in mission control, you would still have to go in. So we were getting tested, I think like every week or every other week. So we would like drive in, get tested, go home, wait, make sure you didn't have COVID, and then drive back in. So that honestly kept up like some of the excitement too, because it was like, we have to make sure like you better do all the things you need to do so then you can make it there, make sure everything's good. And we did that for a few months, and then like things just kind of took like a pause in the testing schedule, so we weren't going out to work as much, so it was kind of just me sitting at home. And that's when I realized like I really didn't like the desert, because it was like other people could social distance and like mountain bike and do all that cool stuff. Like if you like that, or hiking or being outdoors, like it is a wonderful, beautiful place for that. But I was like, is this what I want to do if I have to live in the desert? So yeah, that was kind of a moment where I was like, well, now I'm a work from home mission control rocket scientist. Like that is not what I pictured. So it's kind of like ruining the excitement for me. So then I kind of had like an internal battle of like, do I leave this job that I thought was like so cool for the past like 6 months or so, to do something else? And that was like pretty tricky. But how was your COVID situation with work?
Mine was, I was almost the people that work remotely forever, to be honest. So I started my first job in January 2020. COVID hit in March. So I went to the office for 2 months, and then COVID hit. And for about 6 to 9 months, I worked fully remotely. And that's when I made the realization about my location as well, where I'm like, I don't want to be in the cold. There's nothing to do here. People are not going out. Everyone is stuck at home, not just because of COVID, but also because it's freezing cold.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
that's
really,
fair.
yeah, I'm not really big into skiing or any of this snow activities. It's way too cold for me. So my parents moved from Florida to Texas right before COVID. And
Okay.
I came to visit a couple of times whenever we were able to travel again after COVID. And I loved it. I love Texas. I loved Austin, which is where I live now. So I just talked to my manager at the point and asked if I could be fully remote. He said yes. I was like, okay, cool. We switched my contract. I moved to Texas, was doing a still full remote job for another maybe year or so.
Okay.
But everyone ended up going back to the office at that point. So I was the only one working remotely, having to log in, being on the camera in the conference room where everyone is there in person,
And
building
then
those
you're like big on the screen.
relationships. Yeah, exactly. Just my face on the screen. And it was just different. I felt a little bit of a disconnect at that point with my coworkers, with the projects, with the conversations. So I knew at that point it was a time for me to try something new. And then I joined the company that I work now, fully remote. So, yep, it's been remote. Everyone asks if I ever work in the office. Technically, yes, for 2 months, but not enough time for you to get the office experience, I would say. So very, very different. Fully been at home for the most part, which I know that the place that I live matters so much, since I'm going to
Oh,
be
totally.
fully working from home and having to spend my free time outside doing fun things with friends and family. So I completely understand that big debate of now work from home, what is happening around me that is not just my job. So I think COVID hit for a lot of people in that sense. I know a lot of people moved, a lot of people applied for remote jobs where you could do those moves, and so much
Oh,
happened
yeah.
there. So
No,
yeah, completely
absolutely.
understand. Yeah.
I feel like
And
it was like a good time to almost like slow down. It was like we were in college. It was like, okay, get an internship. Okay, get a job. Figure it out. Study, study, study. Graduate. Go, go, go. And then it was like, okay, COVID. Now I'm literally just sitting at home staring at a wall trying to do like a YouTube ab workout. Like that's it. And it was just like, okay, what do I really like want out of life? Like probably not the desert.
yep,
So, and not the
literally.
cold.
Oh, no, not the cold. Mm-mm. And I don't think I could do the desert either. So I get it. The weather is a big one.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
it was a big realization. Literally, for me, it was the same thing. Like always being on the go, go, go. Always trying to figure out the next thing. And at that point, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing to figure it out. You just have to sit, relax, and just wait it out.
Mhm.
So that slows down people like us. They're always trying to figure it out what's next, which is good. You know, it's one of the positive things about COVID. Got us to all take a breather a little bit about life, which was great. Um, but then going from that job, you said that the desert was not for you. You're working remotely at that point. What was the next steps that you took for your next position, for your next path in your career?
Yeah, so that was, I'd say, like my first quarter life crisis. Like, it wasn't that serious. That's obviously like a little dramatic. But I was like, okay, I thought I wanted to do the space industry thing. Like, I realized mission control was even like a possibility. That was so cool. Like, big, flashy, fun job that I love going to every day. But the location was hard. Like, what do I do now? It was like, I never thought I would reach mission control. So it's like, how do I like top that? And that's something that I kind of struggled with for a little bit. But I was like, at this point in my life, like even just like that exact moment, I was like, I have to do something kind of like outside of work too to like figure out who I am like as a little baby adult. Um, so I took a job at a software startup that was based out of downtown LA. And I was like maybe an hour and a half, like 2 hours with traffic from where I was in like Mojave, Palmdale area. And I didn't know anything about LA. I'd like been on the weekend, like to go to the mall. And they were like, well, we all live in downtown LA. Like, it's so cool. You should move there. And I was like, okay, sounds great. Like, I had like a family friend who lived like in town in that same area. So I was like, sure, why even look anywhere else? Um, and downtown LA, are you familiar with it?
No.
So it's
Mm-mm.
like it's super super packed. I could see how it could draw like certain people in, but it's like everything's very close. There's like no parking. I can't parallel park, and there's just like all these like so many apartments and businesses and like all these things all packed into like one small area. So I feel like it was like a shock moving from the desert to like the most dense place I had ever been. Um, and yeah, just like the amount of people, like it was right after like things were starting to open up from COVID. It was like it almost like was like just shocking to be like something so different. So I was getting to go into the office. I would like walk to the office. I didn't know that was like even a thing that I could do. You know, like Florida's just too hot for that. But like I was doing that. I was there as like I think employee number 8 at this like pretty small startup that had already raised money, kind of doing their like solution sales engineering, and then some of what like we kind of just ended up calling like special projects. But I rebranded the whole company at some point, or I would help them with their conferences and kind of be like the face of that out in the world. And that was super fun. It was like totally different. And like, I honestly kind of struggled for a little bit of like, okay, I went from something very technical to not. Like, am I doing the thing that we so often see the stats about of like women leave the technical field with an engineering degree? It's like, I'm not helping my girls, you know, like I am now one of those. Um, and it took me like a long time, like truly until like the job after that to go like, whatever makes me happy, like I'm not going to be like a negative data point to somebody, and like nobody's even going to care like what I'm doing because it's my own life. But that was a time where of like self discovery of like, okay, what do I like about technical stuff? And in that role, I really realized it was like just talking to people about the technical stuff that I do understand that I loved so much. And that's what I've been doing like since then too, is just like whether it's talking to customers or talking to whoever's funding us, like translating the big nerd talk that I like spent so many late nights trying to figure out like into normal people words is like that's my jam. So that job was a lot of that, and kind of just figuring out like how do I blend this role that's like very like non-technical on paper, with my degree. So but yeah, a big realization, like they never talked about that in college as like there's these other roles. It was like just don't leave the industry because the girls, we got to do it for the girls, you know.
Literally. And the one thing that I learned, because I'm kind of also in the middle, the one thing that I learned, and there's not a lot of people in the middle, to be
Mhm.
fairly honest. I think a lot of people either go into the very technical role and they love it and they're so passionate about it and they're gonna die, of being a technical person, just spending
Yeah.
so much time figuring out those problems. Or there's a lot of people completely on the opposite end where they're really good with people, really good at communicating, really good at selling things and just focusing on the business side. But the middle person, which is where we come from, it's not that easy to get, to be fairly honest.
Mhm.
So I did the same kind of debate a little bit of going from a technical role into something that is not technical, but you need the technical experience
Right.
and knowledge and understanding. So, yep, I debated a lot my decision of I did all these hard classes, I learned all this coding, all these different things. Um, am I putting out to waste? Because if you don't
Right.
practice them on a daily basis, you kind of forget some things a little
Oh,
bit. I've been trying to
absolutely.
hold back a bit of work right now, and I do not remember the basics. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of like reteaching myself how to code at this point, which
Right.
goes back to my whole debate at that point of, am I just going to forget everything?
Yeah.
A little bit, not everything, but some parts.
It'll come back
So
faster.
yeah, no, we catch up fast. But yeah, if you don't practice those technical things, for sure, you get to fall behind a little bit, I would say. Because I see all the
Mhm.
people that are doing the technical roles right now, they're up to date with the technologies, they're up to date with the different programming languages and all those different things.
Right.
But we still have to catch up. We still have to keep updated with everything and being able to understand what they're doing with the new technologies and all of that work. So I think it's something that a lot of people just don't realize of how much of the technical experience and knowledge we need to have to be able to do the roles
Oh
that
yeah.
we do.
Right.
So comes to you for following what you actually wanted to do.
Likewise.
'Cause yeah, thank you.
Go
So
us.
that's go us, honestly. That's always a big debate that I've talked to people on making the transition and the decision of staying technical or not. But I think our role is just as hard, it's just as difficult to translate the very technical work into, I like
Right.
to say, like plain English, into just something that everyone is able to understand. It's really hard. It's a big challenge. It's in itself, and there's just not a lot of us, right? So we're still in our umbrella. We're still in the STEM umbrella, helping in so many other ways. We're just utilizing some of our people skills a lot more, which is completely okay and understandable. So I'm glad you
Oh
kind
yeah.
of jumped into that too, anyway, the realization and that you're still doing that. In regards to kind of the work that you're doing right now, can you touch base a little bit on that and how does it reflect to that people skills that we've been touching base right now?
Yeah. So I guess like once I was leaving that company to kind of connect the like every couple years I just have a full panic attack about like what am I doing with my career. It happened there too, and I was like, okay, I think I want to get into something like a bit more technical, not in the sense of like doing the engineering work, but like something that kind of challenges my like systems thinking that I liked on the engineering side. So I came to another crossroads of like, okay, do I go back to the technical side? It felt like this was my one chance, and it's like I don't know why I decided that. But I was like, okay, I'll do technical interviews. I'll do like these like other hybrid role interviews and we'll see what happens. So for 6 months, I actually just didn't have a job, which I also was like probably a little non-traditional. Like thankfully I didn't go out a lot, I guess, when I was in LA. So I had a nice savings and I could do that. But I was like, all right, I'll interview for like thermal engineer again. And maybe I'll go back to that at like a satellite company, or like I'll find just another sort of like solutions engineer. Maybe that's like what I want to continue to do. But I knew I wanted to be back at a startup because I really like the like kind of messy everyday, like, what do we do? We all have to panic. Let's go, 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 like solve it. Which like is like not a negative on any of those companies. It's just like very much comes with the territory of like nobody's heard of us. Um, so I remember I interviewed, I was like preparing for this technical role, and it was like I just like what you said, it's like I don't remember this stuff as much as I used to like a year and a half ago. So I was sitting there with like flashcards at the dining room table going like, okay, I have to remember, like, quiz me, okay. And I was like, is this even fun to me? Like, it's not that it didn't come naturally, because it's like I did pick it up faster than like the first time we learned it in college, but it was like, do I even want to? So it was like this battle of like, well, I guess I'll just keep going and see what happens. But as I was searching on LinkedIn for roles, I found the company I work at, which is called Skyfi. And I was like looking up all their employees, big creeper on LinkedIn. I have LinkedIn Premium now, and you will see like when I look at your stuff, I leave it on. But I was like, all right, I'll just like email somebody at this company. They didn't have any job openings. But what Skyfi does is like a geospatial hub for satellite imagery and analytics. So it's like you need a technical understanding to kind of like communicate what all these weird like bands and like machine learning things do for different people. So I was like, okay, that seems like a good hybrid. And I messaged our CEO on LinkedIn and I was like, hey, do you have anything? Like I applied to this role. It was something like pretty high up, like 40 wise compared to like the level of experience I have. But I messaged him and I was like, hey, I'm really interested. Do you want to get on a call? I really like X, Y, and Z about your background. I think this could be a good fit. So I remember we got on a call. I like prepared questions for him, did the whole shebang. And they had me interview with maybe like 4 or 5 different people over a span of like probably 3 of the 6 months I was unemployed. And I was like, but it seems like such a good fit. Like, let's just see what happens. And they ended up offering me a role for business development manager, which was like handling the contracts for different partners of this platform that they were building. And I was like, okay, that's super not on the technical side. But the woman who had the same role, she had an engineering degree too. And I was like, okay, this seems like a good fit. So I was like, let's go. Maybe since it's a startup, I can kind of pivot once I like am in with the team and we have some experience. So for I think a little bit under a year, I was doing business development for our analytics partners. So we talked to all these companies. They basically have like PhDs in like trees or like oil and gas, like numbers and data. So we would go to these experts and I would get to translate their products into words that made sense for our contract and for our product, but just on the like agreement side. So I got to see like the business stuff I thought I would do way back when, you know, like negotiating and like going back to my team, like how do we make this work? So it was a really good foundation for that side. And then we had an opening for product manager, and I had already been like working with the product team a little bit from that side. And I was like, okay, product management is like collecting requirements, getting creative about finding solutions that you've heard from customers. Like people are going to complain or ask for things. You just have to solve it. Like you don't even necessarily have to think about what the next one is. And you get to do like a little bit of branding. So I was like, okay, I think this is all of the things I've been kind of like going towards, whether it was in work or volunteer events, all in one role. So I talked to our team and I was like, hey, we have an opening. Can I have that? And they were like, yeah, sure, you're already here. So I kind of just found myself in like the literal intersection of like software engineering, business development, which I already did, and then like customer sales, marketing, how all those fit. But that was another one where I kind of just asked, and like that isn't something I'd say I do in like my personal life. Like if I'm making friends, I'm not going to go up to somebody at the gym and be like, hi, do you want to be my friend? Like you seem really cool. Like I can't do that. But in work, I guess for some reason, just like when I need to, it just shows up. But it worked out, and I've been here for I think almost 3 years and like a couple of weeks. So it's been a lot of fun just sitting in the middle and like knowing enough about everything to solve somebody's problem. So
That is amazing. I'm the same way, which is so funny that you just mentioned. That's why I was smiling here. But I'm the same way. If it comes to work, I'll go and I will bother anyone and I'll go to a VP and CEO and
yep.
director just to meet with people and talk to them and learn from them, learn more about their experiences and the careers that they had and also the company. But if you put me in the group of people in my personal life and tell me go talk to them and make friends, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's the funniest thing. I'm still trying to figure it out. What is the difference of work compared to personal life? To me, in my head, personal life should have been easier because it's just random strangers. Um, but no, it's a lot more challenging. Um, but that is amazing. That is amazing that you're doing the product management role right now, that you got to mix a little bit of everything with this position that you have now, with the technical side of things, with the business side of things, like you said, the marketing, the everything. So that is amazing. And I'm going to go back a little bit to what you mentioned, how you're unemployed for 6 months. So, how was that? Did you make a decision of, okay, this job is not working for me anymore. I'm going to quit this job and then go find something else instead of applying as I am doing a full time job? Did you have a timeline for when you're going to apply, get a position, hopefully? How did the whole process work?
Yeah, so I was already like locked into my lease, so that was like the main limiting factor was like I have to make sure I don't drain my bank account enough to like not be able to pay for rent. Obviously, I'm sure my family would have stepped in, but I would like to not put them in a situation like that if I have to. So really, it was just like me watching my bank account go down every month, and like that's how I was really like being the most motivated. But yeah, it was really just a time of me going like, what do I like? I like did some side projects, like exploring, trying to like learn new skills, see what was going on. But it was pretty much me every day, most days, going, let me look on LinkedIn, let me see who I can find. And then other days it was me staring at a wall going like, why am I unemployed? Like I did so much work and like did all these things in college. But yeah, I didn't have a job lined up. I was like, this role just isn't for me right now. And it feels like I'm kind of at a time where I need to make this decision faster just to get to the thing that does make me happy. And just given that I did have the opportunity and like the savings to do that, I was like, I might as well just like rip the band-aid off and get it done. Which once again, very bold. I'm not that bold normally, but I was like, I just want to find something that seems like such a perfect fit. And at the time it just like wasn't that company. So
That is amazing. That is a very bold move.
so
It
weird.
is. But also at the same time, an awesome move, I would say. Just because of the courage that you had of, okay, this is not working for me, having that full understanding that was not the company for you anymore, that was not the position for you anymore, and be able to leave. Of course, you plan it out accordingly financially with everything, which is awesome. You didn't just drop and figure it out later, but I'm glad you had a plan and I'm glad you did that. I think it takes just a lot of courage, to be honest, to be able to do that. And it landed you to the position in the company that you are right now, right? So, which is a positive and amazing thing. And I love how you also approached it, that you just went to the CEO of this startup company and asked for a position, basically. So that is also another extremely bold move. That shows a lot of the courage and how you go after the things that you want. And sometimes taking that break for how many months it is gets your mind clear a little bit of what the things that you like, the
Oh
things that
yeah.
you don't, where do you want to go in life, what is the next step, what do you want to do. I think there's a lot of people that just get stuck on, I'm in this job, in this position, in this company right now, and I have to stay here. Or if I want to grow, I have to grow within the company. And that's not the reality of the situation. I think that's more people move and leave their jobs and go to different companies and try different things than actually stay in their companies and the positions, to be honest. I think now the perspective and our generation is doing things that are a lot different than the
Oh
older
yes.
generation. But that is amazing. I'm glad that you kind of jumped and you did all of that. Um, and then going into a little bit of where you are now in life, I know you also started your own project, your own product in a sense. Do you want to touch base on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I feel like the theme of my background in this conversation is really just like, this sounds really fun and I think I could do it, so let's do it. So, kind of in that same theme, too, um, I was kind of like looking online. Obviously, like, we're in a wild time with like politics in general, and no matter like what side you're on, like, it's really hard to like follow the news that's going on just because it's like, if you miss something for 30 minutes, it's like we're way past it now. And to figure out like where it started is tricky too. So, at SkyFi, one of my projects that I lead is our AI, and it's taking like literally a world of data, like satellite imagery from like going decades back, and the analytics to like run on top of that. But making that make sense to like a single user, whether they're in like the agriculture business or environmental. So taking all of that and filtering it down. And as I was going through that, like with our team of software engineers who were executing on it, I was like, okay, like this is what we need for like everything that's happening in the world with politics. So I was kind of exploring that, like playing around with different tools. And I was like, okay, perfect example. I should just build this tool for fun. Like I've kind of debated on like, do I need to go back and get an MBA if I ever wanted to like start my own thing? And I was like, I didn't have student loans early on, you know, in undergrad. So like, should I take them out now? And I was like, well, I think I can at least learn some skills, maybe not all of them, like maybe not in the same traditional sense, but from just trying my own thing. So I took the skills from like my product management role right now, my experience in the past of like doing branding and like figuring out how to like tell a story to customers. And I started what is called Broadside. And right now, like if you know anything about AI, it's like certainly not impressive at this point. I have bigger plans, but it's basically taking all the bills from the Congress API and then using AI to summarize it in a way that makes sense to like everyday people. I certainly didn't remember like all the stuff I learned in like seventh grade, like US government on like how it works. So it's always me going like, what is this? Like, how does this process work? And then just remembering it and then automating it. But you can go online right now. Like I set it up to where I worked with a developer too. So that's a big caveat. But he like helped me set up like an entire database and you can make an account on there. We have like a free and a pro tier. And you can look at all the different bills that are being passed at any stage and kind of understand what the gist is without having like a political science degree. So it's been super fun and just another big challenge to go like, okay, how do I make this thing that I just learned 10 minutes ago make sense to everybody? And it really feels like college again, like when I'd go volunteer and try to teach kids how a rocket works, even though like I really just learned the fundamentals of it yesterday. So kind of just expanding on that. And I've gotten to like learn so much about like where products break or like setting up triggered emails from a platform. It's like, how are you going to get sent to spam? Don't do that. So really just learning like all those different little nuggets has been like super, super fun. And deciding like the website colors and things like that is nice.
That is amazing. I was actually taking a look at it this
Thanks.
week. And because to me, I have no knowledge on the political aspect of things at all, to be fairly honest. Never
Oh yeah.
really got really in depth with it because, like you mentioned, there's so much information out there. The information is so contradictory of each other, and you don't know what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is not, and it changes so fast. So
Oh, yeah.
it's really, really hard to keep up with it. But my husband loves politics, so I'm trying to learn and understand. And I actually showed it to him this week, and I was like, "Look at this!" And it literally explains like the way that I like to say it, like in plain English, what things are. And it blew my mind. I was like, "Oh my gosh, all of this makes sense now," because I was trying to go to just looking at all the bills and like reading things, and it was still not clicking in my mind. I'm like, I don't understand why isn't that clicking, if it's the word that they're using or how they wrote things down.
Like
It was
for
really
the everyday people, why do we need a
exactly.
translator?
Yeah. So it was so hard to understand, so hard to keep up with this, so hard to answer my husband's questions about all this politics things, to be fairly honest. I was like, I just don't know. So I show him, and then I started reading things to him. He's like, wow, that's a really easy, simple way to explain what that is to people. And I'm like, I know, this is just incredible. So just want to say that the tool is awesome, really incredible.
Thank you so
Made my life
much.
a lot easier with my now politics discussions with my husband, because he loves to get into that. So it really helped me out on that side too.
Oh,
But that
no,
is
thank you so
amazing.
much.
Yeah, of course. And I'm glad you kind of used all of the knowledge and skills that you had from your previous experiences, from your current role right now, to come up with your own thing. It's what I like to say, there's something that you really want to do that does not exist out there, just start. Start before someone else does, right? Because I'm pretty sure this is an issue that so many of us have, of trying to
Right.
understand the bills and everything. And at some point, someone was going to come up with the idea. So I'm glad that you did come up with the idea, and then you just got started with the project. So that is awesome. And then moving forward, what does the future look like with this project? Do you want to do any other projects that you're trying to play around with it? How, give me a little bit of that.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm very lucky that I'm in a role right now where like our team lets us do fun stuff on the side. Like I'm like peer pressuring some of my coworkers, like go check it out, test it, like tell me what you find. But I think like my next step for this is really just like continuing to build like as I explore the different like system of politics, like I've been reading a lot of like political science books, and I think there's a pretty solid overlap with engineering in the sense that it's all connected. You need to know where things interface or where things break down or like different loopholes to like get things done. So I've really just been like taking my time talking to different groups, figuring out like, okay, what are your like concerns with this? I'm making this tool because I wanted it. Like I was saving bill updates that I found on like an Instagram of like a cool girl, who's summarizing it. And I was like, okay, I don't remember where I saved that, like what's going on next. So just trying to figure out like, okay, how do I make this to where it's usable like for my Skyfi coworkers? Like we need to follow different like regulations and changes. How do I make it simple for that and automate it? So really just like a way to stay up to date on what's happening in like the AI world with this, and kind of just like taking in all my friends' feedback and going like, okay, you don't like this color? Great, I'll change it. Okay, this doesn't make sense to you? I'll edit that. So really it's like the perfect test bed, almost like a long-term hackathon of just like, I'm just going to keep like going and see what happens. But it's so much fun to have like ultimate control, like, which sounds like, what am I, a psycho? But like, no, it is cool to like decide all of it. And I think the big thing is like, it's all on me if it works and it's all on me if it doesn't. And I feel like that's like pretty empowering to go like, I don't have to wait for someone else to go like, I like that idea or I don't. So that's been really fun. And also like, frankly, kind of scary, to like post it on like my Facebook and ask people to like test it out. If somebody looks at it and they're like, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen, like that's helpful feedback and it won't hurt my feelings deep down, but for a second I'll be like, but what do you mean? Like, why? Like, so that has been a really cool, like, learning experience that I don't think I would have gotten at work, just because like when people are honest with me about work, there's like clear business goals tied to it. So it's been like fun and scary in that way for sure.
Oh, no, that's amazing. I understand with this podcast project that I have, where you just kind of throw the idea out there, and just wait for the
Yeah.
feedback, and hopefully the feedback is good. But if the feedback is not good, don't take it personal. You ask for the feedback.
Right.
uh,
No,
it's
I
like
feel you.
it's like your little baby, your little project that you just started, that you feel so proud of, that you want to grow. And but it's awesome that you also get to share that with other people, get the feedback to make it better, to make it more useful for others, right? So that is really, really amazing. So I'm glad you started the project, that you, like, again, took the courage and made a bold move of just get it started, testing it out, post it out there, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna grow. So I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen with the project next, to see what you're gonna do with your career next as well, because I know we're always changing, we're always growing. So very, very excited. And to finish our episode right now, do you have any feedback, anything that you've learned throughout your life, throughout the beginning of going into STEM education, into what you're doing now with your life? Anything that you want to share with everyone that is listening to right now?
Yeah, I'd say a big one that's kind of like I've been thinking throughout me explaining, like, I feel like my whole life story. So thank you for listening. But just really about like trying something new. Like, when you were like, oh my God, I did that with my podcast. I'm like, wait, I didn't even think about it because you were so professional when you like sent me all the stuff for it. It's like, I wouldn't have thought that you would be like, even the tiniest bit nervous to like do something different or like think about what someone else had to say. Cause I was like, oh my gosh, you did that. Like, how cool is that you started it? And I feel like that's something that's always kind of hard to remember, that it's like other people, like somebody might have a fleeting, like, why are you trying to do something that I didn't expect you to do kind of thing. But ultimately, people are so focused on themselves and their own journey, rightfully so. So you might as well try it. And if anything, they'll just go like, oh, you did that and it didn't work, or it did work and it was really cool. But that's something so small in the grand scheme of all the things you can learn and grow. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's the big one. It's just like, it seems so big in the moment to decide to do something, but later on, it's just like, no, it's just going to be a part of who you are, and that's cool and neat. And yeah, so thanks for starting a
100%.
podcast.
Of course, thank you. No, and that's the feeling that everyone goes through, which honestly, I've talking to so many people now doing these interviews, and everyone has taken a bold move in life at some point. And we always focus so much in the funny way of what other people are going to think. And when at the end of the day, every single person is making a bold move in life at some point and making some different decisions. And literally, what you say, focus on themselves. I think everyone is just focused on their own lives, their own path, and don't really care what the other people are doing.
Right.
But we always focus so much on that, and in a way, it's a little bit sad because I know for that reason, a lot of people don't start
Mhm.
those projects, right? Um, but I'm glad that we did. I'm glad that we just jumped in, created something different, something unique, something new, just put it out there. And, I hope we both got really good feedback and that we grow into something better and bigger. So I'm glad. I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's a big one for me. I was and still am, I'll say, very nervous to keep going with this podcast, to posting my face out in the internet. Because once you post something in the internet, it's just there forever. That's kind of how I see it. So that's the biggest thing for me. It wasn't even the conversations, the interviews. It's just posting something out there, and now everyone gets to see and have a saying about it. But at the end of the day, I think it's good for us to focus on the reasons why we did it, why did we
Mhm.
start, and just being proud and happy that we actually jumped into starting those projects. And hopefully they're very successful. And if they're not, that is okay too. Then we'll start something new and try a whole nother project and idea, right? So it's kind of what you said. This is going to be successful or not based on how much work we actually put into,
Mhm.
and getting other people's opinions and feedback is a huge part of it to make it better for the people that are actually using it. So that is awesome. And yeah, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you.
joining today, for doing this interview, for sharing your beautiful story. You have so much knowledge and so many different experiences in life and so many different technical parts of your career and also not technical parts of your career. So very happy, very excited to have you here. Really glad to hear your whole story. I feel a little bit more connected to you, which is amazing. So I just want to say thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. This was so much fun, and I hope other people get to like take little nuggets that make sense for them, like from all your episodes, and go like, okay, like maybe my wonky career journey, like does make sense for me. So super
Yeah, of
excited.
course. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening right now. With Payton Barnwell, she is a success story with her own unique career path, which is a beautiful career path that you had, not just career wise, but also personally too. So, really thankful to have you here today. And moving forward, we're going to have a lot more great guests into the podcast. And if you like what you're listening to, want to learn a little bit more from everyone with their own unique experiences, please just subscribe, follow us. So, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. Bye.